Recording in progress.
Lock it in.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm calling the meeting to order. And before we begin, I will ask the town manager to announce the protocols.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the town's YouTube. It is important that those within the room remain quiet unless participating in the discussion, and that those attending over Zoom keep their cameras off and microphones muted unless participating in the discussion. It is important that those within the room participating in the discussion speak audibly toward the microphones or the microphone on the lectern, and that those attending over Zoom unmute themselves and turn on their cameras. If you are a resident on Zoom who would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature. Once you are called, please unmute yourself and turn on your camera. For speakers both in person and over Zoom, please state your name and the street that you live on for record keeping purposes before you make a comment. If this meeting is interrupted for any reason, I will immediately end the Zoom. It's going to be linked via email. I now turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So before I ask for a motion on the first item, I do want to welcome our newest council member, Rohit, and everybody needs to learn how to pronounce his name since we've all pronounced it wrong for decades. Councilmember Rohit Khan. So let's have a round of applause. And he was, as many of you know, he was nominated last week by Councilmember Heller, and he was sworn in immediately, and he already went right to work at the county council testifying on some important legislation. So I didn't know if you did you want to say anything?
Where's Kabir? Right
He was
there.
online.
Oh,
So did you want to say anything? Did you want to?
Very glad to be here. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much. We know you're going to be an excellent addition. So the first item is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
We will next go to the first item, updated presentation by Youth Council on a proposed pickleball social event. So am I going to turn that over to the mayor, Youth Mayor Peters? Welcome. You can come over to the And remember to say your name and your street, and then also your vice mayor, your council president.
So hi everyone, my name is Ari Peters, and I am the youth mayor of our Youth Town Council, and with me is.
I'm Sarah. I'm the Youth Town Council.
Last name,
president,
please.
Sarah Guinan, and I'm on board.
Thank you.
So at the December 2024 work session, we presented to the town council a proposal for the spring social event. At the direction of this council, we then informed the tennis committee of our proposal in order to receive important feedback and concerns. At their February 2025 meeting, the tennis committee ultimately voted against the spring social. Despite this vote, the youth council is still interested in hosting the spring social, as we know the ultimate decision is up to you. Today, we would like to provide an update on your thoughts after receiving important feedback and concerns surrounding this event.
Okay, so as you've heard, it's no longer the pickleball social, and we're now moving the spring social. As now, we're not gonna base it all around pickleball, even though it will be one of our main components. We would like the sole purpose of this event we would like to bring together the Somerset community and just have a fun spring event where we can have pickleball. We have discussed that it's loud, controversial, but honestly, when there's construction in the neighborhood, that is louder and it goes on for a longer period of time. Or Ari and I, for example, we both live on Warwick, so when there's a swim meet, there's always the cannons and the buzzes going on. So that is something else that we have to hear. So I think we can make an exception for pickleball for 2 hours to bring together Somerset when we have to do these other events throughout the year.
So yeah, we'd just like to pass it over to you.
Okay, so let me explain what the process is. So tonight, we're in a work session, and so if the council, if at least 3 council members agree, it will move forward to a council meeting for consideration and vote. And in the meantime, we would want you to write a article for the Town Journal and also publicize all the outlets, the proposal. So I will ask Council President Barr if he has any questions.
Sure. I mean, have you considered the basketball court instead? I mean, it's got park all around it. So for the other events, they're immediately available and right there. So why not the basketball court? What was wrong with that?
We think that the basketball courts, I mean, we've heard the feedback for the basketball courts, and it's totally valid. However, we just think it's more of a spacing thing. The tennis courts, we can have around 6 courts on the tennis courts, and so we can have, that's what, 24 people at a time. And but if we can only do it on the basketball courts, that's maybe only 2 games at most on there. And so I think if we could have it on the tennis courts, it'd be a bigger event, and we could include more people.
Also, I know the people of Somerset pay to have this tennis courts, and not everyone uses them. A lot of tennis players use them, so the people that don't use them do pay for them. People don't use them for pickleball, so just be more fair.
Right. I mean, I will say it's fewer pickleball games going on at the same time. But I mean, the advantage of the basketball court is the park all around it for the other events that you're planning, because you're all in one setting there. What are you going to, I mean, how do you do it in a confined space around the tennis courts is the point.
Well, I think another important thing to consider is that there are also around the whole field, people may also want to potentially play basketball. I have friends who play basketball on those courts, and they adamantly told me that they would really like to use those basketball courts for basketball. So I think it would be in addition to the pickleball, which could be on.
Right. The tennis, I have friends who play tennis, by the way, and
Yes.
you can say
Oh,
the
yes,
same.
of course.
Right. So
Yeah.
you can see the same point with tennis.
Well, there's more space. Because we can maybe use 2. Sorry about that. We could potentially use 2 tennis courts for pickleball, and then an extra tennis court for tennis. I mean, I used to be a big tennis player too. I completely understand the desire for tennis, and that it's very important to tennis players. We just want to have these 2 hours to.
All right, I'll leave it there, and I'm sure the other council members have questions.
Councilor Heller.
2 things. If you were to use the basketball field, there's no, is there a fence around it? So if the balls go out, they go out to Wisconsin Avenue, would that be? Am I right about that?
There's
There's
on
fence
the
on
side facing Wisconsin, there is somewhat of a kind of chain gate.
Kind of,
Yeah.
okay, but it's not, is it all
It's
contiguous?
not, it's just this side.
That's one side, okay, because I don't want anything to be unsafe. But also, the point, did I hear you that you plan to also be able to have basketball going while there's pickleball going? Am I correct? Or did I hear that wrong?
Yeah.
No, yeah, we can. Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
That's what, that'd be part of the event, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And to the point about, for these 2 hours, we wouldn't have possibly any tennis players. Doesn't that happen all summer long when the camp comes and plays tennis on the tennis courts? Don't we give up the
It's not on a weekend.
Yeah, this
okay,
is,
it's not on the weekend. This is 2 hours. I think that this group has come to us. Well, are we gonna debate this some more? This is just question and answer period?
Well, after the discussion, then if 3 of you want to put it on the council
Okay, so
agenda.
I guess I would like
So
to.
it's,
I got you. I guess I would like to encourage us to put it on the council agenda. This is a 2-hour event that our youth, who we want to engage in our town, has come to us and asked us to do something. There is more noise that goes on here every time they knock down a house or do any construction along this block. How many houses have been knocked down and what has the noise been? You can probably tell us that. Okay, you can tell us firsthand. We're asking. We are just talking 2 hours. They are not advocating to have pickleball as a thing that we should do. So I would like to ask you all to support this and send it to the council where we can really then talk about it. But I think we need to do that. I'm done.
Okay, Councilmember Kumar. Do you have any questions?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, guys, I couldn't hear you well, so I'm sorry. We'll probably revisit some things you might have said, so I apologize for that. So one thing, this is not a pickleball event, right? It's a broader gathering where there will be pickleball. Yes?
Yeah,
So talk into the mic and let's see if.
Like you have to be really close to the mic, sadly.
okay, you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, so we renamed it into the spring social and we plan on including basketball. So that's why we couldn't use the basketball courts as pickleball courts. So we'll have more, we'll have the basketball games, the pickleball games, definitely lawn games and just, everyone socializing all around the town hall.
So this is a spring social where there will be many games, including pickleball.
Yes.
Okay, and it's on a weekday or a weekend?
No, we were aiming end of May on a Saturday, 2 hours of the gameplay and then the other 2 hours just socializing, on the lawn here at the town hall.
Great. And all aspects of this has been sorted out other than the pickleball, or are you coming to us for the whole event right now? Are you asking us for support for the whole event or for this, the pickleball component?
Mostly for both components. The pickleball is the contentious component, but I think everything else is perfectly set in motion.
Okay, so you're here for the spring social. You're here to, okay. And then one quick question, have you already talked to the tennis committee? Or has someone asked you?
Yeah, we went to the tennis committee back in February.
And what did they say?
They voted, they didn't approve of us using the tennis courts. However, they said the decision is ultimately yours.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Oh, I just want to say I'm in favor of bringing it to the council. So support voting with Debbie if we get down to that point.
Councilmember.
So for the nets, can you really split up at one court to make two pickleball courts with just one net?
Yeah, we were planning on bringing in like our own nets and then we use tape. So theoretically we'd have one half of the tennis court. That would be its own game. And then the other half of the tennis court would be another game.
So there's two games on each tennis court.
Yeah,
Okay, but it's this way, it's not the net way.
yeah.
Do you have those fees factored into your proposal?
Yes, we do.
So that includes like the $600 includes nets?
I think, we were planning on asking if anyone in Somerset had nets, if they could give us just for the event. So the budget was mostly for food and then if you need other lawn games, but we would have to change it if we do have to buy nets and rackets, but we're also hoping that people would be able to bring their own rackets.
Yeah, I would be surprised if a lot of people had nets, but you know. They do have nets.
Yeah, we were also, planning not to include that as part of the budget, because if the town of Somerset bought our own nets, then it'd seem like we're trying to implement pickleball, as a.
Right.
Can I jump in here and say that most pickleball players do have their own nets? They're in their trunks. I know many people that, and I would go and try to borrow some of those for you.
And then also I just want to clarify, so like for the usage of the tennis courts, only the people that play tennis pay for it. They don't, it's not for the whole town to pay for. So it's, your comment about that was a little, because I think you said
I
that.
just meant like the actual construction of them.
Make sure you talk into the mic, sir.
I just meant the actual construction, not using them year round.
Okay, I thought you meant that people pay for the
Yeah.
tennis courts but don't use it.
Oh, yeah, I didn't talk about when you have to pay, like, I don't know if it's 40 or whatever to use them.
It's now $35.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and then So how does it like, so if the pickleball kind of event is like over at the tennis courts, but everything else is over here, like how does
Okay.
that flow? Like, cause this is all kind of centered over on this area.
Oh, I think that we're all amicable people that, I think there's gonna be a lot of people.
Yeah.
We're all gonna be.
Oh, what about the drive, the ride to dialysis?
Excuse me, this is not, there's, okay.
I think it was just
There's
by
no-
accident.
This is,
on
there's
mute.
there's no public participation.
I think that there's gonna be a lot of people moving all around the area, and so even though it'll be sort of in two different areas. It'll all just move and smooth over nicely. There's no set plan in place to have people have like socialize, we're just gonna go and do it.
Yeah, we're thinking for the actual gameplay, we'll have people sign up, first come, first serve, so the people that are playing will stay by the course, and the people that are waiting to play, or just in here to socialize will be over here. So I guess we don't really need everyone going back and forth, it's just the people that are signed up to play will go to play.
And did you guys like look at or consider doing like also a tennis event?
That was an idea that was floated around a couple months back. The only thing that, because years ago, there was a tennis event held like this. And I was the only kid that was present at that event, and there were maybe 10 people maximum. It's been done before and it didn't really take off the way, because tennis isn't as accessible as pickleball is, so we decided to go with pickleball instead.
Well, I mean, I definitely, because like I don't think that the tennis event was supported by the youth council with like such exuberance as this event could be. So, I mean, and there's a ton of kids who do take lessons for tennis on the courts at, various times. So, I don't know. I think that maybe there should be like a tennis element as well, perhaps.
Yeah, we just want to use the tennis courts as best as they can be used. If there's a lot of people that want to play tennis on those tennis courts, by all means, okay, so then that side over there, we'll have people playing tennis over there. And this side over here, we can have people playing pickleball. We just want to incorporate the pickleball element because there's a lot of more people that are able to play pickleball and pick it up quicker. And that's more accessible than learning tennis, which can take many months or years.
Mhm.
So.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Khan.
Yes, thank you. So I also agree that we should put it on the agenda, so I think we're over the top on that, I hope. I have one question for the town attorney. That's
Yes,
okay.
yes.
To ask. But I'll come to that later. So I agree. I think that the basketball court should be used for basketball, and I also agree with Shannon that keeping one court for tennis for the event, I think is a good idea, and then having pickleball on the other two courts, I think is also a good idea. My question is on timing. On the sheet I have here, it says early June, but you said late May. I just want to make sure if you're going to have it on a Saturday that it doesn't clash with a swim meet. Maybe Kabir or someone else knows better what the swim meet timetables are, but we want to make sure that we don't have a significant portion of the town's kids split between these two. My second question is, what happens when you have pickleball on the court? Are the tennis nets, do they have to be removed or can they stay? And if they're removed, who takes responsibility for putting them back up and so on and so forth? And if they stay, we need to make sure they're not damaged. My third question is maybe to hear from you what
Is that question to them or to the man?
Well, to the manager.
So why don't you let
Yeah.
explain?
Well, in terms of I don't know if they need to be taken out, but it's pretty easy to remove the nets,
Okay.
store them in the garage and then bring them back out. We can do that pretty quickly.
My last question is for the town attorney, which is for events like this, are there liability questions about, if something happens during the event I see here, for example, there will be teams supervising and so on and so forth. What are the requirements for the town to ensure, to meet our liability requirements with a lot of kids all over the place? Who's ultimately going to be responsible for the safety of the event? Sorry, and one last question for our youth council
Well,
members.
let's let him answer, so then, yeah, let's let him
Go
answer.
ahead, Ron.
So generally speaking, the town's liability is limited by sovereign immunity and the Local Government Tort Claims Act, which caps liability for certain negligence claims against town officials to, I believe it's 400,000 per occurrence or per claim and 800,000 per occurrence. But just despite that, the town has in the past required participants to execute releases of claims. I believe we do so for special events at the pool, for example. So I mean, if the council wanted to, it could require participants to execute a release of claims in connection with this special event.
And we could easily do that. We could easily do that, right? Good idea.
My last question is, could you just summarize very quickly what were the objections of the tennis committee?
It was primarily on the usage of the courts, and then they feared that this event like this would then encourage people to think that it's okay to play pickleball on the tennis courts. We do not want to bring back pickleball as a year-round thing. We only want pickleball to be, we only want to have a spring social that includes pickleball as a one-time thing. That was their main concern. Yeah.
Oh, and then also, they were worried about the tennis courts being removed, so you just have to make sure that everyone wears, sneakers with lip on.
Thank you.
Is that your own?
Yes.
So I'm glad you brought up this whole issue about people illegally using the tennis court for pickleball, because that does happen, and that has been brought to the staff's attention. And do you want to address how you're working on it?
So we're gonna, for one, add a sign. Right now, there's actually not clear signage on the tennis courts that pickleball is not allowed. So we had one both at the entrance to the actual road, but also entrance to the tennis courts for one. And then so far we've had a pretty good rate of when people are. It's usually if it's during the week, we're right here, so we're able to just go down and quickly stop them. And on the weekend, we're working on.
Well, we're looking at technology.
Yeah, like
So that if someone, so we don't want it that residents have to police the tennis court, because that is not good. So we're looking at some kind of technology where so let's say Councilor Redback sees somebody playing pickleball on the court. Instead of her going over there and getting into conflict, she would contact the town hall, and there'll be a camera there. And then so then each will be able to say, what you're doing is illegal, get off the court immediately. So something like that. There are ways to do this.
What does that
Because
cost? What does that cost?
Dial 311.
well, we're looking into it. Probably not very much, because technology isn't very much anymore. So, but the fact of the matter is the pickleball is illegal on the tennis court, and it is our duty to enforce that. And it's not the duty of citizens to get into conflict with people. So we're working on it. So thank you very much. I want to thank the deputy town manager for working so closely with the council. I think that your idea to have this council is so outstanding, and this is like young democracy at work, and it's very exciting. Thank you very much. So it sounds like at least three of you want us to put it on the agenda for May. Is it April? Oh, April, sorry, yeah. So it'll be on the April agenda. So I do suggest that you write a article for the town journal, and you might want to put in all the objections that you worked out and all that. And thank you very much.
A quick response to Rohit's question. Swim meets are usually, as you know, and Shannon knows, and others know, it's usually first half of the day. So if this happens in the second half of the day, if it happens to be a swim meet day, then it might also pull in folks that participate in the swim meets. So, you know,
Starts at 10 a.m., so the swim meets are usually not over. at
You know
10.
what? This will not be on a swim meet day. Swim meets don't start until June 7th. This will be in May.
there you go.
Okay, so we'll make sure we say.
Or it could be on a Sunday.
Or it could be on a, yeah,
You're gonna do this in May, right?
we could work that out. I think it shouldn't be a problem.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item is preliminary review of the mayor's draft FY 2026 budget, which is a joint agenda item with the Finance, Revenue, and Budget Committee. And every year before we have these budget work sessions, I give a little pep talk. And this year, our outstanding town manager wrote me the statement, which I'll add a little bit. So first, I want to thank the town manager and the members of the committee, the Finance, Revenue, and Budget Committee, Chair Peter Tynan, who's here, John Medaglia, who's been on the committee. He's the veteran of the committee. John Barry, who is like a jack of all trades for the town, and Nick Fox, who I guess wasn't able to be here, for their hard work and collaborative approach to the draft, to the draft budget. And I know this is the chairs. You were on the committee, but now you're the leader. So thank you so much. And so I want to remind everybody that the charter states that the town manager drafts the annual budget under the direction of the mayor, and the mayor submits the budget to the town council. So when I first got elected to the council over 100 years ago, what would happen is the Thursday before the meeting that the budget was introduced, we would get some kind of, it wasn't a spreadsheet. It was just like the numbers all in the thing. And then it was introduced, then an article would be written, and then a month later, there would be like a 5-minute hearing and we'd vote on it. And since I've worked in city councils and everything, I know we all know how important the budget is. So I created this process, which basically before the budget is even introduced, because this is just the draft and this isn't finalized anything. So before the budget is introduced, we have committee input into numbers. Then we have these outstanding citizens, it's sort of like forced public engagement, scrubbing over everything, working closely with the staff. And then we have these work sessions where we force feed the budget to the council, and they can make preliminary decisions on what would possibly be the final numbers. So I'm very excited that this is now sort of like permanent policy of the town, because I think it's been incredibly successful and worthwhile. And I really want to thank everybody for engaging. So as I said, the purpose of the committee is to provide assistance and feedback to the town manager during the drafting process. The work session provides the opportunity for the council to review the budget prior to its introduction at April meeting, adoption in May. And so the budget work session will begin with the chair introducing the budget and the budget process following his, I don't think he has to do that now since I did, but anyway, following his presentation, the council will go down the budget line by line and have the opportunity to ask questions, make comments, or suggest edits. And I wonder if, so should we have the chair sit here? Wouldn't that be best? Because we don't want him to stand over there.
Yeah, where was that Ann down there?
Oh, can you sit? Is that okay? And do you all, does the committee want to come up here too?
No.
You're cool. Okay, Mr. Chair, if you can come up here, because remember, this is because this is recorded, we want to see, we want to see. Is that okay? Because there are a number of our citizens that actually will be watching this. hopefully hundreds of them, right?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Probably gonna
Right.
break the system.
Okay, so I'll turn it over to the two of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. As you outlined, actually, the process works pretty well. And as I've come onto the committee with John and Kabir's support and Nick Fox, I think we've had an extremely collaborative process to get you a draft for which you can go through line by line. And as EJ has done his first budget, pay him a compliment too for his rigor and analytical skill and ability to work well with the committee. Just to orient you to the documents in front of you, there should be four. One is a brief summary presentation that highlights the main points and some of the assumptions of the budget. The second is a working paper prepared by John Medallia, our in-house resident on property tax revenue, which can get quite complicated. And so he's detailed in great detail the impacts of the assessment we've all been through this year and how it flows through to the budget, which we'll draw on him to talk about as you require. The third and fourth documents that EJ, the manager, printed is the FY26 budget or draft budget for you to go through line by line. And the second document is the 5-year out year projection, which the town is legally required to produce. In the 5-year projection is FY26 as the base year, just for your orientation.
Oh, and I just want to bring up,
Yep.
so this is a unique feature in our charter, which is 119. Oh my God, it's 119 years old. So I think when the forefathers and mothers of the town created the charter, they put in this great feature that it would be a tool that councils could use in the future. And I don't think any of the other towns, around here have that requirement. And remember, it's not something that is voted on. It's just the idea that it's a guideline, and it's really an outstanding budgeting tool. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to bring that up.
The first document is the summary, and it might be worthwhile just spending 5 or 10 minutes going through that just to orient you to the main point, the main major inputs and outputs of this year's draft budget. That's the document with the
It's on the screen.
on the screen as well. So as you know, we're in financial year 25, which goes from July to June. So we've gone through a half year, almost to 3/4 of the year, which helps in the budgeting process to get actual numbers to put in FY26, which is July of this year to June 2026. The first page of this presentation is some of the activities the new Finance, Revenue and Budget Committee have undertaken this year. We don't have to go through those. Suffice to say that the financial overview of financial management and working with the town manager to clean up the finances is underway and has gone well. And I'll just highlight the consolidation of the bank accounts and signatories and overall financial controls, which have now been mostly completed. And if you turn the page to page 2, sorry for absence of page numbers, we did a slide here for the budget at a glance, or the draft budget at a glance. And even though there's a lot of text here, if there was one page you had to refer to, this would probably be it. And it's worth setting the scene that our current financial position is very strong. And we have about $4.6 million in the collective town bank accounts spread across checkings and savings, and then the Montgomery County and Maryland State investment savings accounts, some of which are being moved into those accounts, which have a very high interest rate. So we're starting from a strong position, which really is to the credit of previous budget members and this council and the mayor, as well as some ARPA money, which has allowed over $2.5 million in infrastructure investment into the town over the last few years, continuing into the next year, which is really unprecedented and certainly before my time, but has set up the town incredibly well. And you'll see that reflected in the out years of the budget, where infrastructure funding can potentially be reduced, and yet we still have a very strong cash position. So the town and council to be congratulated, and really makes this budgeting process a little bit easier. you all know far better than I the amount of the areas where the infrastructure has been improved, and we can look at the remaining items that the manager and others have suggested that you'll go through and decide if you want to pursue or not. Just to highlight, revenue is around in 2024, the last full actual year was 2.5 million, with OPEX, operational expenditure, and CapEx of over 3.1 million, with a net negative contribution, so to speak, of 644, which is completely normal, and just shows an outflowing of funds that then dips into the reserves. And you can think of reserves as just the savings or the bank account of the town, the savings account for the future. This year, revenue is tracking at 1.5 million at the half year, and that is mostly due to the timing of the income tax and property tax payments that we receive. We're on track for OPEX and CapEx expenditure, which the manager can talk through more. And for what it's worth, we have a slight a net contribution, but forecast to be a net negative contribution at the end of this year. The takeaway is that for financial year 25, we're on track to the budget that was set last year. The only reason to say all of that is that obviously is the starting point for setting any budget going forward for the next year and 4 years after that. Let me just continue on, and then I'll pause. In terms of the revenue items, there are 3 major revenue items. One is the property tax revenue, which is based on the Montgomery County assessments of our residences and public space. And John Medallia has worked very closely with Montgomery County in translating both the assessed value and the net tax value, and how that translates into revenue. I'll leave him to answer questions as we go through it this evening, but suffice to say there's been an 8% increase in property tax revenue of about 63,000 for next year. And over the next 3 years, as it's phased in, it will be a total of 25%. So while all our assessments have gone up, which means we pay more tax as individuals, the flow through to the town is obviously positive. On the other side is our income tax, revenue, which is highly variable and comes from Maryland State. We don't set those rates at all. The property tax rate, as you know, is 10 cents per 100. In the past, there were motions to increase that rate, but the FRB is not bringing forward any property tax increase recommendation.
And at one point here.
Yeah, of course.
And one reason that we're not making a recommendation for an increase is that the first year, our fiscal 26, the increase in our assessments is 9.47%. So that's almost the same as what we get by increasing it by another 10%. By increasing the property tax rate for Somerset by 10%, 10 cents to 11 cents per 100.
So I just want to ask, don't we wait ultimately to see what the county council does before we put in the final number? Because they vote before we do, right?
Well, so this is the town property tax, though, which is separate from.
Our property tax rate would be based.
You know-
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you were talking about the town property tax. Because I mean, I'm shocked that our town property tax brings in so much. Because the ratios have really changed, right? It used to be a different ratio, income to property, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened is that in the prior, so the assessments are done every 3 years for a 3-year forward period. And in the previous 2 3-year periods, the rate has been pretty modest. But this time, it has gone up a lot, 9.40, the assessments, not talking about the property tax per se, 9.47% in our fiscal 26, 7.20 in our fiscal 27, and 6.89% in our fiscal 28, for a cumulative 25.43%. That's an increase in our assessments. So in other words, a house that was assessed at $1 million, which is really the bottom of the barrel for our houses, in our fiscal 2025, in fiscal 28 would be assessed at $1.2543 million. So that gives us a very nice boost to our revenue.
Yeah, I just want to retract the question because I was thinking ahead about tax duplication. I wasn't
Yeah.
really, now I'm listening better, so I retract the question.
Yeah, I will make
Thank you.
one point on that though, Mr. Mayor, and that is that the county executive is considering a quote strategic property tax increase. So that's a lot on top of our existing increase.
Right, so that's why we might want to consider lowering our rate to reflect the increased assessments, but I shouldn't even have brought that up.
We want to wait until.
I
see
don't,
if it went up or not?
that would only be if we felt that our dollar increase, like if we reduced our rate a little bit, the actual dollar amount that people pay isn't significant compared to how much they're paying in county tax.
Right.
But it would be up to the council to decide. You're not recommending changing the rate, right?
We're recommending not changing the
Right.
rate. Right.
Since we got into it a little bit, do you want to give your interesting factoid about where the town will be in 3 years?
Yeah, when you
Yes. please.
when you do a projection, using taking the mean of the 3% increases that I just mentioned, 9.47, 7.2, 6.89. When you take the mean of that and then project it out 2 years for our 5-year budget, you get, I'm sure I don't have the number, but it's like 986 million or something. So if you go out one more year, our houses become assessed at over $1 billion. As a group, the
That is
total value of our housing stock.
Not like my house.
But
The total assessed value.
we're kind of the victim of our own success because the value of our house, some of it is intrinsic because of the
land.
the Somerset, name and the way we run the town and have these assets and everything. So when I don't know if you've ever talked to any of the tax assessors about how they assess the value, because I mean there are reasons why a similar house in Somerset, in let's say east of the county is way, even if it's the same exact house, same everything. The reason why it's more over here is because of a lot of the stuff that we do, right? Isn't that right? So we're kind of a victim of our own success. If we let the place fall down, the assessment.
Yeah, there we go.
But we don't want to do that.
Negative
No, they
incentive.
put like a big premium percentage on top of like on those tax worksheets that we got up. Like there's like a 2.0, like double because you're in
Because it's
Somerset.
Somerset.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting this year that people finally woke up and started understanding better the whole. And I don't know if anybody, do we know if anybody appealed their property tax?
I think a lot of people
Did anybody win?
It's in
They're
process.
still ongoing.
It's still in process.
I appealed and not only I lost, but my assessment up. Because they thought that I had a springed in porch. And they said, I sent them a photo and they said, what's that? I said, that's not a porch, that's kitchen.
Uh-oh.
And I said, uh-oh.
Okay, so they are allowed to increase it.
Yeah.
So that's the risk you take. And so a lot of people, so people, it was like Jeff Lake, when he improved his property like that, he didn't really realize that how much it was going to go up, right?
No.
And that's why education information is so important when people make these decisions. So it's really good that was raised.
I'd like to make one final point, and that is we did ask, we were wondering if the increase in assessment was due to a catch-up. In other words, they hadn't had a lot of increase previously. But they said, no, it's based really on property values as distinct from trying to boost them in order to make up for lost revenue.
I think that's very interesting because when I looked at like the rate for my house and several of my neighbors that came crying to me, and I said, we're catching up because my house was never assessed for what it would sell for. Now, at the end of these years, I think it's right on target. Now, not that I wanted to pay that. And the same with my neighbors that were unhappy. I said, this is what your house would sell for. So I'm not sure if they're
Or
totally
maybe
honest with you.
more.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're
Right.
totally honest with you.
What I did was ask for the prior assessment sheet from 2022 and the current assessment sheet to see what had changed in my assessment going up. What really had changed was something that Shannon said, which is the neighborhood adjustment factor. Somerset has become a lot more desirable in the last 3 years, according to the assessment, which is very strange, actually. I mean, I'm trying to think what has changed in Somerset in the last 3 years to make it so much more desirable, but that is what drove the increase.
By the way, I do have a complete spreadsheet, if the council would be interested in having it, going back 6 years and then forward 3 years, house by house and totals, if anyone was interested. It probably would be advisable to make it available to the community, but it is available. for the council.
Your expertise is amazing.
Can I just ask a question? Yes. So if I understand correctly, what you've done in your 5-year projection is you've applied the average that's currently on the books for 25, 26, 27 and use it for the outer years.
Correct.
Is that realistic in the sense that has that been the trend in previous rounds of assessments? Will we actually, I don't know, Robin was saying, or Debbie was saying, it's caught up with, it's caught up. But maybe the fact that it's caught up means that the increases now in the outer years may actually be less than 25, 26, 27. And I'm wondering if we are being optimistic as a result about the revenue projections in 29, 30. But it's far
Well,
out. But I'm just-
Okay, let me answer that. If you take a look at 2019, 2020, and 21, so 2020, these are calendar years.
Yes.
The increase was 1.02 and then minus 0.15.
Yeah.
So if you made a projection, it would be very little. But the next 3 years, the increase was 4.72, 3.91, and 3.8. And so if you projected those out, they would be, around 4.1%, give or take. But in fact, they're 9.47, 7.2, and 6.89. So not only, so basically they have increased a lot in each 3-year period. So I don't have any basis or any other assumption for making a projection.
Well, the reason I ask is that what if this region goes into its biggest recession because of a certain massacre that's taking place? And as a result, the next round of assessments 3 years down the road will reflect a reduction in sales prices compared to this significant increase in the past 3 years. That's what I'm trying to get at, is whether we should in fact be less optimistic or pessimistic, depending on which way you want to look at it, about those outer year numbers. I mean, I know they're outer years, so it's not something we're dealing with right now, but I'm trying to get a handle on the 5-year.
Rohit, I can address that very briefly, which is that we chose to, it's very hard to understand the impact of the RIFs and the job cuts right now on how it will play out in the local housing market, and whether that, along with the other developments like the FBI center, whether it'll move to Maryland or not, how it will show up in the broader economy and whether there'll be recessionary effects. So it's just very hard to assess that. But I think the point you're making will become very important for the next budget cycle. And because I think we will have enough of a data to give us a sense of whether a recession is forthcoming or if there's sort of a localized slowdown. Right now, the housing market impact is actually a mixed picture, the most immediate impact. Some of it is seasonality. Some of it is, as you know, there are two-income households. In some cases, we are seeing houses move faster. So I think next year, this will become a more important dimension because we will have a year's worth of data on what's really happened locally. But I think for now, we are probably okay to kind of go with these sets of assumptions.
I'd just also like to say that for the 40 years that I have lived here, this neighborhood has never stepped back. I mean, we only have gone forward in terms of our housing values. It doesn't mean that these next 4 years, which are going to be so challenging, might not be our comeuppance. But so far, in 40 years' time, we've had a lot of ups and downs, and our housing prices have never gone down.
Yeah, I'd like to make 2 points. One is that we do have specific data for our revenues, for our property tax revenues for item 26, 27, and 28. Slight variance, but the assessment is what it is. The other thing, I'm not sure how much the RIFs, especially since a lot of them were for provisional people, would affect us.
Very good.
Well, I want to add on that, John. We have already had impact in the neighborhood, just so that everyone knows. Already, I know of at least 2 families already impacted. One is actually going to move. They're renters. They're going to leave because one couple lost their job related to the USAID cuts. So there is impact, but it's not yet material, and we don't know whether it'll be broadly recessionary, and we don't know how long it will last. So only next year, I think we will know, and we can then revise our projections.
I agree. Let's come back to it next year.
John actually buried the lead of his factoid, which is we're going to be $1 billion town in a few years' time.
In fact, let's see, our fiscal 31, calendar 30. We can have a big banner over there.
Tree City and.
Something
We should probably
may or may not want to
put that
advertise.
sign
Exactly.
Let's not advertise that.
Let's not advertise that.
Exactly. All jokes aside, though, let me just zoom through the rest, just to orient you and pick up on Rohit's point, which is the extreme volatility we'll all be facing over the next few years. So I think overall the budget tries to take, we can argue the growth assumptions and you can change them as you see fit, but we try to take a very conservative approach to this budget. And when you get to the reserve lines, even though they appear to be insanely boring, they're actually really important because it does show, depending on our infrastructure spending, if we can hold revenue steady at a lower rate, which I'll talk about, our reserves still build. And subject to some shock event, then that puts the town in a good position in years +4 and +5. And so the committee has talked at great length to make sure we have a budget that can ride out a downturn. And I can point out areas where that comes through. And then as you can decide if you want to change it or not. Of note, though, the income tax we're predicting will decline by $400,000 compared to last year. And that's based, and let me run through the whole thing if you like, and then we can come back to that. But that's based on actual numbers and takes us back to FY22 numbers. So that, as the mayor indicated, changes the calibration of property to income tax. So while we get an extra 60,000 every year, so additive, we're losing a fair bit. The budget still takes that into account, even this year, and we're okay, is our assessment. But just note that. And so conservatively, we've rebased the budget for income tax in FY26 and then just grown it from there. And in one of these slides is the actual data and calculation that we can go through and you can change or adjust as needed. On OPEX, the town manager presented his first.
So I just want to say one
go
thing,
on, go
which I
ahead.
always say every year is that as much as we're a welcoming town, we don't want to welcome too many people that work at the World Bank or at the IMF. Because if the whole town, I say this often, that if the whole town were with the World Bank, we would have no income tax revenue.
Just on the decline in income tax revenue, the prior decline that happened a couple of years ago was because the Comptroller's Office was unable to process partnership monies because they didn't have the software. And we got a great burst of money coming in as a result of that. That means that the following year is necessarily going to come down from that burst of money. Is that what you're seeing?
I don't know the reasons. We're seeing the decline.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that is probably the reason for the decline. The point is that yeah, well, I guess using this year then is okay to build it up. You certainly can't use the prior year if the prior year had 3 years worth of money in it.
So I wanted to, I had been telling EJ that, in years past, we have met with the Comptroller's Office.
Yes.
Because they analyze this stuff
Yeah.
better than we have the capacity to. So I do recommend
Yeah.
that I'm sure EJ can set it up, and the controller would love for us to meet with their office.
Oh, that's great.
So I wanted to bring that up because I didn't know if you knew about that.
Oh, no, thank you. In fact, it was going to be one of the recommendations or
Yeah.
suggestions to, authorize us to go do that.
Oh, yeah,
because-
totally. Yeah,
And
yeah,
do-
EJ can set that up.
Do we know, I know in the past, there's been an issue with like, maybe some people don't have Somerset coded correctly on their income tax. Do we know if that's like
So
been
that's a
rectified?
question that we ask every time because we want to make sure that they have a list of all of our addresses.
Right,
And the other issue is that there's some people that file their income tax, I think, Mr. Chair, don't they file their income tax with like their accountant's address on it? And how do they figure it out that way if you don't? So if I file my income tax and I put care of so-and-so Rockville, Maryland, and I didn't check off Somerset in that box, how are they gonna know, right? So that's a question I think we have to ask. them. What do you think?
We've previously asked the Comptroller's Office that question, and they say
Yeah, what did they say?
that they have a list of addresses in Somerset, and they match that to the addresses in the tax returns. And then
No, but I'm
adjust the
saying
taxes that way.
if you put on your tax return,
That's
your accountants.
your accountants know, yes, because you put it on your tax return. But the point is, the state controller's office knows by checking against the addresses in
name.
Somerset. So the important thing is that the addresses in Somerset are correct, because that's what they use
Yeah.
for giving us the.
And then the reason why there's this Wynn case, as you all know, is because the controller's office made a mistake and we got overpaid. Because remember, we used Chevy Chase and that's a big mess, just like Rockville. So like Rockville had a problem, Kensington had a problem, Tacoma Park had a problem, we had a problem, we got overpaid. So we got overpaid how many years ago was this? John, do you remember? We got overpaid and then we had to, then they let us pay it back over time and then they erased it, right? So do we still owe money on Wynn? We do.
We'll
We
money
did-
until 2041.
We didn't, they spread it. It used to be, it was 3
So time
years
grows old.
and then they let us spread it out. So
2015 was the issue, but
is that what it was? Yeah.
So we pay $12,000 a year and they just net it off the income tax
Oh, I see.
revenue we receive.
Oh, I see.
For the OPEX, the town manager can take us through in detail each line item. On the income, the third item was fees for the town and permit fees. And the town manager has done a review of all those fees and made some adjustments, which I'm sure you'll want to look at and have him take you through if they haven't already been approved. Operational expenses, which is really how we run the town, and expenditure on maintenance, not CapEx, is either based on multi-year contracts that have just been re-signed as part of the normal operations that I believe you've all approved, and or actuals in 2024-25. So I think a reasonably strong assessment of operational expenses, which we can go through, and then some salary details, which you'll all want to consider. And then we use an inflation growth rate of between 4.3 and 4.1, which again can be debated and changed as needed. And again, let me just zoom through so we can come back to the detail. On CapEx, there's 494,000 in ARPA funding remaining that has been, or the town manager is recommending being allocated to the sidewalks and streets projects, which he can talk through. There are some other CapEx items like the historic signage, trees, a couple of other items that when you look at the numbers, even though it's over 900,000 in expenditure in FY26, the town is only, the only town outlay is 360,000. So most of it is coming from ARPA or residual ARPA funding, which is good. Oh, that's right, the town garage and the landscaping truck. The committee, in consultation with the manager, also moved some of those items to FY27. But again, that's a consideration for the council of when you would like those to occur, and then made some recommendations for projections for the out years. But again, would like the opportunity later this year to review CapEx, particularly on the facility condition assessment that comes back on the streets and other major assets of the town. But again, only FY26 is, I think, mandated legally by the vote. The reserves, as I mentioned, the rainy day fund that was set up in 2014 is now at its target of 12 months of OPEX, which is to the town's credit. And so that floats. We can all look at that again to see if it should just be set at an amount, but at the moment it floats to 12 months of OPEX, including the pool house debt. And the special capital fund, which is an emergency infrastructure fund, is at 250,000, with the residual being unencumbered reserves, which is basically like our savings. And you'll see that in the detail. And we predict, depending on the assumptions, that would grow over time, which is a pretty good projection to have looking into the future, subject to the assumptions. The final point is the town manager. This budget reflects the town manager's priorities and requests. I'm sure you're aware of most of them, if not all of them, for your discussion. And then it also incorporates, I think, all the town committee requests as well. So essentially, the budget comes out as a negative 633 expenditure or outlay, which is funded by our reserves, but mostly by the 500 or 600,000 in remaining ARPA funding. So on balance, a very positive potential draft budget. Let me pause there and hand over for questions, and then a lot of the detail is in the following slides, and then as you wish, we can go through line by line.
Well, so I guess this question is for EJ. Are we still on track to utilize all of our ARPA funds by end of this year, right?
Calendar year 2026.
Calendar, so a year and a half.
By December 31st, 2026.
And
Okay, so we don't
And that's
have,
reflected in this budget.
and we don't have anything that we need to like prioritize like immediately in terms of like getting that stuff done. Like
It's all
accounted.
it's all been obligated
Okay.
as of last December. And then it's all, that obligation is reflected in this budget. So this budget would see us.
And the
spend
obligation is to the
more.
contractor for the streets and sidewalks.
Yeah, the street stuff, whatever,
Yeah,
right?
Streets and sidewalks.
Okay.
Ron may want to weigh in on the ARPA process as well.
No, EJ covered it.
Yeah,
Just
he
just
got
wanted
it.
to confirm that the funds are already obligated. They had to be obligated by the end of December 2024, as EJ noted.
Yeah.
So this
By the
this
way-
budget isn't reallocating anything. Everything's already allocated with respect to ARPA.
And this is an area we are tracking as well, because there could be a clawback of ARPA. We don't know what that will look like, but we will track that. Fortunately, if it's obligated and largely spent, I think it's going to be very hard to execute that if this administration goes down that path.
Okay, I have a few comments, good points I'd like to make. First of all, on the balance, someone mentioned the balance between property tax and income tax. So as you noted, the balance has shifted so that the property tax becomes a larger component of our total income. And that's important because it's the property tax is stable and predictable. And that's especially important because the income tax varies a lot from year to year. Point two, on the rainy day fund and other reserves for that matter, we're having those at interest, which is about 4% now. And so that means that the amount, since the amount of the rainy day fund is so large, the amount that we will need to put in each year in order to match the budget, the 12-month budget is small, reduced by the amount of interest. Third point on the special capital fund, it's not really an emergency fund. What it is we're looking out, in future years, what we want to do is have a bottom up. So let's say that the pool is going to need to be done in 10 years for $1 million. So we put in $100,000 each year. Let's say the garage needs 500,000 over 8 years. So, whatever that is divided by 8. And so it would be sort of like money in the bank that we would expect to draw on, so that when a capital project comes due, we would not have to pull out a large amount of money.
Or borrowing.
Exactly.
And also, I think, isn't EJ also doing a 20-year plan? Like
Yes.
20-year.
In development.
Yeah.
We don't have to,
20-year, but a 20-year financial plan.
Well, most assets like we have 20-year. Isn't that right? Don't most assets have 20-year? Like, because when I was president of the building over here, condo building, we had a 20-year plan. I thought that was the best practice. So
We are doing a capital assets planning. That's what Chair Peter referred to.
It's a long-term project that I'm working on.
Yeah, you're working on it, a 20-year.
Yeah.
so for this year, for this budget, we don't have this bottom up yet. So we put in whatever was 450,000, I think, just as sort of a placeholder, because I know something would have to be put in. But we don't know what the precise amount.
Well, yeah, it was 200,000 last year, so it was moved to 250. But it's for long-term capital improvements because we do have capex lines identified for the next 5 years. Would be either emergencies or a build up to something beyond that. But again, it's just a reserve.
Sorry, I've got a newbie question here. I don't quite understand this investment of 1.9 million there. It doesn't show up in your table on the right. So what exactly is the 1.9? Do we draw on that for some of this, or is it totally separate? That's one question I have.
Oh, no, great question. So no, it won't show up in that diagram, but it shows up in the big mega spreadsheet because that's cash at bank today. So right now, we base the reserves of cash at bank at the 1st of July 2025. 2024, sorry. 25. No, 24, sorry. So that cumulative beginning reserve is cash at bank back in the 1st of July. So that 1.9 is sort of our sort of reserves in progress. You won't see it because we're in the middle of the year. But if you looked at the bank accounts today, they would all add up to 4.6 million.
So, I'm sorry if you.
And go.
I'm not sure I fully understand the structure of it. So if you include all our reserves and you include what we have budgeted for this fiscal year, basically it's 4.6. That's what you said.
No. So the beginning reserves are our bank account balances on the 1st of July, 2024.
Mhm.
Our ending reserves are what we would forecast our bank account to be on the 30th of June, 2025.
Mhm.
And we're right here. And so the bank account just happens to be 4.6. Oh, sorry, back here.
So, sorry, and the other question I had is, just to go back on this income tax question. If income tax was down in fiscal year 25, why do you assume it's going to be up in subsequent years?
We just apply inflation.
Just in inflation?
Just inflation.
Okay.
Rohit, I think the reason it's down is what I said earlier, which is that we got a bolus of funds from the state last year, which was a correction for earlier years that they had failed to compute the taxes of some of the wealthier citizens in our town. But that was spread over 3 years of income. So therefore, that was not a single 12 months revenue. Therefore, necessarily this year would come down because that bolus wasn't there. So then that means that this year is a reasonably accurate estimate for going forward. Last year certainly wasn't.
And the increases across the 5 years are just basically
Just
inflation.
4.3 and 4.1, I think. Yeah.
Can I ask like specific questions about the line items? Okay. So the pool bridge, $100,000 budgeted in fiscal year 2025 may need to slide over to fiscal year 2026. Like, what is our budget again? Are we in 2025? No, we're in 2026. This is 2026. Right?
We're in 2025 and
Okay.
we're planning for next 2026. And so there are that's why the bank account is so high. There are some capital projects that you haven't spent yet over the
Like the pool bridge.
next 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And so that will like be like a working move
Yes.
over, basically.
So
Okay.
if EJ can we doubt EJ can get the bridge moving before the swim season.
Yeah.
So we highly predict that it'll be flip over into this
Okay.
budget in 26.
Got it. And then
Do we
I
have a
know,
contractor yet?
No, that's why.
Right, okay.
We know it can't be done until after the swim season.
Yeah, the irony on the pool bridge is that if it's just putting new planks down, it probably wouldn't cost 100,000. But on the other hand, if we have to reconstruct the whole bridge,
yeah,
it would be more. So 100,000 sort of in between.
I think we got a quote for it, right?
No, that's what I'm working on getting right now from the engineer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then for the public safety committee, it merged in with the traffic committee. It looks like they had recommended $20,000. That was for like traffic bumps and rumble strips.
Yeah.
And maybe like some lighted stop signs or something. And I did not see it in here.
That's correct. That's not, no.
I don't know.
There was a $20,000 recommendation from the Public Safety Committee that hasn't gone into detail because the Traffic Committee and they only just merged. So it was essentially a placeholder request.
I remember that. Yeah,
So that was.
I can answer that.
Yeah.
So, since it was a placeholder request, for now, it's kind of, I've mainly put that in for pedestrian scale lighting. Because that's why that's $20,000.
Those should be separate.
But, because we have some money for pedestrian scale lighting this fiscal year, and so continue that into the next fiscal year. But if the Public Safety Committee could also always come back and request that that money be reprogrammed into another category.
But you all can put it in if you all want, you can put it in whatever category you want. So they don't have to reprogram it.
But do we already have the money set aside for the for the potential for pedestrian
Yeah, that's in this
lighting?
year's budget.
That's in this year's
Yeah,
budget.
and this is a new amount.
How much is in this year's budget?
20.
Also 20,000.
Also 20.
But then also a consultant for 14.
Yeah,
So have we already allocated the funds for the 14?
yes.
That's part of Dewberry?
No, this is a different consultant.
Oh, we have a different consultant.
I see, okay.
But this is the point of this work session. If you Do you want to put in more somewhere?
Do we know, like, I mean, as far as like Dewberry and this actually is kind of getting into like the end of our public safety memoranda. I can't talk. It's been a long day. So do we know like where that all stands as far as like what Dewberry's done so far for?
They're preparing the master plan right now, and so once they prepare it, they'll present it to the council.
And we don't know how much they're gonna, like, we don't have any foresight into like how much they're saying all this is gonna cost.
Yeah, I can, not to distract much from the budget, but as the new council member can discuss, it's in process. We just went on a walkabout of the town with Dewberry, with the public safety committee and the pedestrian safety working group. And now they're putting together some initial estimates.
But it's a good question because remember, we have until May to have that money. So this is something that we need to put a pin in. And hopefully we'll get the information by, you want to make sure it's in there.
I mean, because it's
So we need
one
to
of
get
our
that,
biggest,
yes, we need to get that information.
it's one of our largest expenses right now, right?
But
The
that's-
five
but that
sixty-seven
money-
is in there. I'm sorry, go.
The
Please go.
567 is
Yeah.
ARPA funds, like it's already been obligated to that county.
Okay,
That's why it's that.
Oh, so that's for ARPA, that's
That's all
all,
ARPA.
so that's being paid by ARPA?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
And it's been obligated towards
Oh, I see.
infrastructure.
Oh, I see.
I think that's under street, street sidewalk, I shouldn't say maintenance, but refurbishment and replacement, 569.
Yeah, that's not all of it, but it's most of it.
Yeah, because you've got some in this year.
Well, so we want to make sure that
Yeah.
that everything that's in, that the committee is recommending, well, if it works out.
yeah, I guess, I
But that
mean,
20,000 could be included in there theoretically if Dewberry comes back and their projects don't, they're not estimating it will cost that much, then that leaves money for other public safety improvements.
Yeah, I think, so I think, my suggestion is not to change that 20,000 lighting, to keep it in at 20,000 lighting, because we don't know yet what that consultant is going to recommend. And the consultant might recommend something that will use 20,000 this year, and then might say you may need them 10, 15 next year. So my suggestion would be to at least keep the lighting for fiscal year 26 at 20,000. And if it is possible, to put an additional 20,000 line item for traffic calming measures as part of the public safety committee is recommended, and then we can come back with more details later. But I have some other questions on line item. Is that how? I don't know which one
So
you-
I think what we usually do at the first one is add all the stuff in that people recommend and then massage it in the future, right?
But are we going through this line by line or should we just?
No, I was just
We're
asking.
hopping around. Because if we're hopping
It's
around,
whatever your pleasure is.
You know, I don't want to step out of turn here, you know.
I defer to you. Do you want to go through income and OPEX, or do you want to just jump around? I defer to you.
This is your.
Well, no, I want to do what's
Well,
best.
that's
Peter, I
for
want
your
Peter to lead
discussion.
us. What?
And what the council is, can base the discussion on.
Well,
Okay.
let's start with income, okay? So, we can't do much about property tax or income tax because we just have to accept what the money that comes in. Ditto for the intergovernmental stuff. Revenue sharing, it has behind that the story of tax duplication, but we are pretty much now got our maximum from the county. There's only a little bit more coming from that. Similarly,
You might want to elaborate on that.
yeah,
Because
tax duplication refers to the fact that the municipalities, police are the easiest one to see. We don't have a police force, but like Rockville, Gaithersburg, Tacoma Park have their own police forces. Chevity's Village has their own police force. But they're paying through property taxes for all the police in Montgomery County too. So they're tax duplication. They're taxing both their own people for their own police, and the county is taxing for police too. That is tax duplication. We've got parks, okay? We've got parks. We're paying the county for parks, but we're paying for our own parks.
And snow removal.
and snow removal and on like that. That is tax duplication when that happens. Most of that has now been corrected. That is to say, we are getting rebates for the fact that we have our own parks, our own snow removal, our own garbage pickup, all that. There's a little bit of stuff over parks that's still got to be worked out.
And to add to this, so the county is not up until recently when an agreement was cut between the municipalities of the county and the county executive. There's for all these years, we've had to go begging to the county executive to please put in this tax duplication money. But in lean county budget years, that was often up in the air. And we had to offer it. But finally, since you've been going to these, because I think there's a finalized agreement, right?
Yeah, there is now. I mean, I was first on the committee when they were finalizing the agreement.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and Mark Elrich has been very supportive on this, by the way.
And I think that's in there this year, right?
Yeah, the money is there this
Is it
year.
money's there?
Robin, that will continue going forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
And hopefully they would never take it out.
Yeah.
But I don't even know how strong the agreement is, because if a majority of the council decided that the budget was lean, they could take it. But I think for political reasons,
That'd be
they
stealing.
wouldn't. Except
They don't take away our stuff.
that's a way to look at it.
The council this year is going to have some very difficult decisions.
That's a way to look at it, but
It's all-
like I said, there's no requirement that they give us anything for tax duplication.
Gotcha.
All right,
We'll
so
be on that.
anyway, the point is the first fees where we can
You two
comment
can go testify.
are the recreation facilities. Guest passes, early bird swim. What happened to water aerobics?
Not here. Well,
Yeah, so after, I know the council discussed it, and so in this draft budget, part of my recommendations in this draft budget are amendments to the fee schedule, and I'll comment on each amendment as we go down. And the first amendment to the fee schedule I'm proposing is removing the recreational fee for water aerobics. So that's why it's on there.
Well, I think you should put it in until we vote it out.
Well,
Yeah, I agree
I'm
with that.
putting it in, and
Yep.
you can vote it out.
no, I think you have to put it in because we're charging early bird swim. We need a come to Jesus conversation.
Right. You
As to
can't
what-
pick and choose.
That's right. You can't say just because we have some loud voices on water aerobics, and I get it. It's a great program. But we also have a great program at 7:15 in the morning for those people that swim early. And I think we gotta have an honest, conversation.
Well, you
about
should have it
this.
right now.
Well, and the stroke of turn, like,
Yeah.
we waive the fee for that for some reason,
Right.
but yeah, we charge like the early bird.
Okay, so you should have it right now because it's in there. It's being paid for now, and so if you all want
Okay,
to take
I
it
don't
out,
think-
Well,
you can take
What,
it
I
out.
don't think we
what
should
I'm
take this stuff
suggesting
out
is
right now.
get it into this estimate, and if we vote to take it out, we'll vote to take it out, but it should be in now.
I think we should put it in, but we need a robust conversation as about all of this and what we don't know is what's the bottom line? What are we talking about? We're talking about $20,000? We're talking about $10,000? 40? Yeah.
About 4,000.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Whatever it
It's
is,
there,
but
no,
when we put
money.
together all of our programs, what's the cost? And what makes,
4,000.
4,392, 4,392.
that's for water aerobics, but then we have early bird swim.
And one comment that happened in the committee is early bird swim maintaining its fee is because early bird swim requires the whole shipping of pool hours and an extra lifeguard.
Right.
But water aerobics requires an instructor who was
Right,
paid for.
That's right, at $100 an hour last year. I don't know what it's gonna be this year.
Well, whatever
Debbie
you-
and Robin, the thinking was that this is sort of a way we could approach things moving forward. Doesn't have to be agreed on. That the town spends on certain civic activities for different
Right.
age group.
I get
So
it.
like we are spending not 4,000, but 2,000, 3,000 on the youth activities, for example.
Right,
It's not 500, but it's inching up closer to the 4 grand. So that's one end of the age spectrum. And the thought was, should we as a council, as a town, provide for residents of different backgrounds recreational activities.
I think we all understand that, Kabir.
But
Yes,
when
that
you
was,
s-
wait. Let me finish.
Okay.
There was
Going-
one pillar of the thinking behind EJ's proposal. And the other pillar was, to provision this, do we need additional costs? And how significant are those additional costs?
Right,
And
I
so
get
that's
it.
partly why early bird fell off, but we could bring it back in if we wanted
No,
to.
all I'm
Because
saying
the
is,
early bird is
Kabir,
required these added lifeguards.
I get you. I get it. All I want to do is to say, just like we have this lovely budget, I want a sheet of paper that says it costs so much for early bird swim. It costs so much to do any of these programs that we're talking about, and the target group, and then we discuss it. But
Okay, so
And
that's,
I'm asserting council's prerogative. I'm saying this has not been discussed in council and it should be discussed in
Right.
council. So let's get it on the sheet so we can
Well,
discuss it
whether
in
We're
it's-
not
council.
discussing it now.
No, we
whether-
haven't.
but
This
you
is
know
work
what?
session.
Whether it's in or out, remember, whether it's in or out. And I mean, we don't want to waste a lot of time
Right.
on $4,000, but whether it's in or out, the budget is published. And then we will hear from our citizens. And then at the final budget, in May, you'll decide.
you know,
Right.
And if
I think
it's
that's
in, you'll,
half-assed.
But we need it there to decide. That's the
Yeah,
point.
we need to have a conversation about the program
so,
in
so
total.
put it, so it's,
That's all.
so, okay, so I said earlier that, if three of you want something, we put it in. So put it in there. And then it'll be on the table for the process, so it's fine.
And what about like the stroke and turn? Are they doing that this year?
Yeah, everyone's got their little,
But
you feel one
the
way, I
committee,
feel another.
the committee made all their recommendations.
I think three
right?
of us
Yeah.
are in favor of
The-
putting it in. So can we put it in?
I think we need to put it all
Yeah,
in.
I
and then
said
we need a
earlier that that's the
conversation.
purpose, we're putting it in.
Sorry, just to clarify, Gary, your proposal is to put obviously the water aerobics
Back in.
on the revenue side as
Yeah.
opposed to expenditure side.
Yeah.
Well, it'll still be on the expenditure side, but it'll also be back to.
Yeah, it is on.
My, my,
So that's
my,
fine.
my question is one more of the principle here. Is what is the council's principle regarding community events?
And that's my point.
I think this is what we need to
It
have a
hasn't been-
conversation about is, are community events subject to user fees?
Right,
Or community events considered a public good?
right.
And therefore
There we go.
I think that's the critical thing we have. to
Well,
have a
we have at the
conversation about.
moment.
Well,
some-
Right now, frankly, we're all over the place.
But I know, but the thing is, three of you want to put it in. I
So let's
think,
put it
right?
in.
So we put it in,
Let's put it
and
in, we can
now,
always take
and
it
so it will appear when
Mm-hmm.
the budget is published, and then the process will take hold.
I'd like to
And,
see this.
and maybe citizens will come,
And they probably
citizens will
will.
come,
And they will come.
and then you'll have to decide in May if you're how you're gonna do it.
I think we need a
And
work
that's,
session on
that's
it.
how the
And that's
no, we
fair.
don't need to have a work
No, I mean,
session.
but so right, the appropriate
There's
way to
no
do
work
it,
session.
Jeffrey, is to put it in and
Yeah,
then
that's
take
what
it
I
out.
said.
And that's it.
That's
You've got
right.
3
So
council
in-
members
in
saying
In
that.
addition
So
to
do it.
water aerobics fees.
One quick
what else would we
comment.
do together?
One quick comment on Rohit's observation. Rohit, the thinking from EJ, supported by the budget committee. Remember, this is just a draft that's presented
Right.
before the council. Nothing is put in or put out. It's just a draft. The thinking that was that EJ was espousing was certain level of activities are a public good. We can decide what that is.
So that's correct.
Perhaps
So
that sounds
I think-
arbitrary.
I
Yeah.
think
That's what
everybody
I'm saying.
And then-
understands
wait, wait.
why it was,
What is-
I think
let
me finish with
everybody
the sentence.
understands why it was put in, but the council, 3 members of the council.
I just want to respond to Rohit's point, if I may.
Okay,
Certainly
so
are-
we're putting
are-
it in. Let's move on to the
Right.
next.
Tennis
Let's
is
put
a
it on a
public
work
good.
session.
If I may please
All
respond to
right,
Rohit's
next,
point.
next question. Where did the swim team fee go?
It's
Oh, yeah, great question. So it comes as a net revenue amount or net cost in we're online. Where is it? Down in 64400 is the Somerset Dolphin swim team in civic affairs.
I don't see it.
Here
What
it
is
is.
MCSL fee? Is that it?
Yeah, so you've got MCSL fee, coaches fee, and then the operating residual, which is the difference in the swim team account between their revenue and their operating expenditure.
So why is it separated from all fees for the town? I mean, it is the town that's paying for this, right?
Well, we can present it two ways. We can either have all the revenue and the expenses and it'll come out as 5,000, or we can just put the 5,000.
Yeah, I think it is a fee that the town is charging, right? For
Yeah.
the swim
Well,
team.
the swim team charges it.
Yeah, but this makes it easy to
Well,
see.
yeah, but the swim team isn't an official thing. The town is the official thing. So
Something's pretty
surely,
official, Robin.
no, the point is that it is a fee that the town is charging. And in this case, through the swim team, but it still should show up as fees that we're charging. That's the point. So
Okay.
it should be listed.
But it's here, it says fee,
Where?
right here, under 64400, Somerset Dolphin
Yeah,
Swim
it
Team.
should be under recreation facilities, pool fees, where, I mean, it is after all a pool fee.
$175
Right,
per kid.
so
So
that's
he's
why.
saying there's no place where that money comes back in here, right? Is that what you're saying?
This is just a shortcut to show we can add that in easily.
But I think the president's point is that it makes it more transparent, and understandable to people.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So I also want to say, so I spoke to Councilmember Heller, because I do think we have time to have a philosophical discussion at the April work session on, what was your question about?
User fee versus public good.
No, but you had a better title for it.
Community sponsored events,
No.
all inclusive community.
Anyway,
Somebody play the recording.
the issue, oh yeah, we'll go, anyway,
Playback.
so we'll have a discussion about. Yeah.
Okay, water
We'll go
aerobics
back,
is
we'll
here.
roll the
It's
tape.
here.
No.
Water aerobics is right here.
No, but they're saying, so this, Debbie, so like this is where we get the money back.
Oh, okay.
So like the money's coming back, like we get 10,000.
We're changing the
from
budget
Camp
so
Somerset.
that citizens will still be charged for water.
As
This
of
is our
right
revenue
now,
we're
until we have
getting.
our
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
We can always take it out.
That's right. So far we've got the adding of the rumble strips, the water aerobics fees, the swim team fee, and the swim team expense.
Excellent.
Yeah,
All right,
Because we haven't.
so are any more on fees there, folks, or should we move on to town permit?
So let me
fees?
just say one thing about fees, which is something that you always are advocate. So I hope that this year, that at the same time the council votes on the budget, that they also vote on the adjusted fees for all the different applications and stuff that we.
That's what I was gonna ask next, actually. is
Yeah,
For the permit fees, are these all adjusted fees or how?
yeah, okay.
The only permit fees that have been adjusted are, excuse me, I'll use, fence and wall. Because they were the lowest at 75, everything else, including like less expensive projects like HVAC was 100. So this just makes a baseline 100 for permit fees.
So I think that we should have this discussion at the April work session. That do our fees need to be raised in conjunction with the numbers that we're putting in? Is that possible, Mr. Town Manager?
Yes.
I think that's a good
Is
idea.
that
Yeah, that's okay. I
acceptable
mean,
to
we
you?
should also have the fees from neighboring communities.
Yeah, so you'll do an analysis.
Can we,
So you want a list of every fee that we charge in the town?
Right. And also, if you've got it, EJ, I don't want it to be too much work, when we last raised it, what has been the pattern of?
Oh, yeah,
fee
can you do
across the
that? When
years?
was the last raise?
Okay.
And what was it? Yeah, excellent.
When we were doing the guest fees for the pool, somebody said it hadn't been raised since 1992.
along that line?
Along that line. So I'm saying that's the kind of thing we need to watch out for.
Are we gonna talk about the payroll service stuff? Payroll?
You can estimate any line
Okay.
you want.
Yeah, whatever you
All
want.
right.
Yeah.
So, under the, operating expenses, 61,000 personnel, are these numbers adjusted numbers? Or as to what you're suggesting for the new year.
Yeah.
So all salaries have been adjusted here?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any reason for us to be doing, I'm not loading this on you, EJ, I can take it up, to survey the other communities to make sure we are up to date? Because once before, we weren't up to date, and then we lost our town manager. Do we all remember that?
Well, that's okay, so the
No.
town manager's salary is different than the others, because the town manager's salary is recommended by me.
Right, we'll have
Okay.
to vote on that separately.
Yeah,
That's different than, so this number here, where did that come from? Just an adjusted starting percent points?
This is what it was benchmarked to from the last projection, last year's budget.
Okay, but does this need a further
Yes.
need me to call the other
Well,
towns
The
and?
mayor.
well, no, EJ can do an analysis for you.
Okay, he's got a
and
lot going on
salaries.
right now.
He can do an analysis for you.
Just, when was the mayor's salary last raised, by the way?
Yeah, that mayor's salary, that is really
No,
high.
we don't need to talk about that.
Okay.
The it has, it's irrelevant. So we'll work on that. It's a good
Okay.
question.
All right, thank you.
Do we really pay $50,000 for snow removal?
No, that's like an extreme,
Like,
We
I
have
mean,
snow.
crazy extreme, right? Like,
Weeks
I mean,
rather
this
than-
year was definitely more snow than last
We
year.
put in the budget, this year, 50,000.
I see it as a slush fund
Yeah, it's a
myself.
slush fund, totally.
I'm like, I'll go and
No,
plow
no,
the
no,
streets for
no,
50
no,
grand.
it's a slush fund.
I'll help you.
Because, but actually,
You're on a slippery
when,
slope.
when we had snow, what was it called? Snowmageddon. You know, we were eligible for like FEMA funds or something.
We're gonna lose those.
So,
No,
but we were eligible for FEMA funds, but the president's absolutely right. It's a slush fund.
I'd
Because,
like to make one point on that. I did get, a year or two ago, data on cost of snow removal. I think even just the amount I think it was on snow removal. And it fluctuates wildly. In other words, I had expected that the cost would go down because of climate change. But in fact, it just, there's no predictability to it.
All right.
Yeah,
well, some of it is because at some point, we added in sidewalks. And then some years are icier than, we also do ice removal besides snow removal, so.
well, this year definitely was the most snow removal that we had since I
quite a
lived
few.
Oh,
here.
yeah, totally.
On the point of snow removal, I mean, one of the things that came up in the most recent snowstorms, and which might result maybe an increase in the budget or more than what we've paid in the past, is I think a lot of people have said that whether the contractor can also ensure that the driveways are cleared, because what we have right now, the roads are cleared, and then there's this wall of snow in everybody's
Right.
driveways, which is a bit of a safety hazard. And then the question is whether we should basically ask them.
But they do.
Well, we
Every
had,
block
we,
used to be a
we,
fine,
we had a
okay?
hearing,
Yeah.
the snow contractor came for a hearing and that was addressed and
Okay.
I'll fill you in.
Okay.
Because that question was asked, but I'll fill you in. There's a good answer to that.
Can also ask about the community events. I mean, there's some new items here like Halloween and so on and so forth. Is there some information on what is being planned and?
Well, yeah, so Halloween was added this year. We had a Halloween parade on Little Cumberland for like families. And so that's where that kind of comes from. And then we had a Arbor Day event this year with our arborist Dr. Feather.
Right.
And then
These are the reasons your housing values have gone up so much. Because of the incredible programming we have here.
Thought it was not a Tamarian's ice cream social.
Thank you, Linda.
Wait until you find that
Thank
water
you.
aerobics-
Yeah, the free water aerobics is gonna add like
Thank you.
10% value to your house.
Everywhere.
Yeah, when they find out there's free water aerobics, they're gonna be
They're
bidding.
just
for
gonna
it.
pour
Flood
in.
in area.
For it.
I mean, there is some, look,
there are people, because because we've invested in our swim team, as you well know, there are people all over the world that want to move here because of our swim team.
Oh, please.
And that's been documented.
No, it's true.
It's true. There was an article, someone wrote an article in
The
The Economist, right?
Oh,
Isn't that
yes,
why
yes.
you moved here?
Yeah, that's why they moved
See,
here.
that's why they moved here. And one of our residents, who I will not name, is recruiting people from all over the world to move here so they'll be on the swim team.
So that'll help with the property values.
There
Right.
you go.
Yeah.
So we're the victim of our own success.
Sorry, were we going, Robin?
Yeah, we were
how
going
are we doing?
through, we've got to salary expenses, and I think we're now going to professional services, if that's where we are. Any questions on professional services?
The garden parks and landscaping support, that's in addition to our own maintenance people, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we still using the same contractor, from, what's her name? Kelly?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are, okay.
So this garden parks and landscaping support, does this include work in the forested areas? I mean.
Yes.
Okay,
Because the forest area is considered parkland.
okay.
Pitman Park is the forest area.
Host Gator, sounds ominous.
That's our website.
Okay, just checking.
For which we've won an award.
Oh, thankful.
It's a crocodile that lives in.
And also added to the value of your house.
So Polymorphic has a continuing contract then? They do the AI behind it? Okay. How long it's, I mean, given the rate at which AI changes, how long is the contract?
The contract was 3 years right now.
So, okay, so we get to rebid it in a year, all right. Right. We can move on to civic fairs and community events. These estimates come from last year's numbers, is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Membership dues. As far as I know, MML, one of these has got to be the Montgomery County chapter of the Maryland Municipal League. That,
Chapter 64301 is chapter meetings.
that's that. Okay, all right.
I don't want
I would
to.
note that there is water aerobics funding in 64 100.
That's the expense, that's
the
expense,
issue.
So I see.
The question is whether it should be on the revenue side as well.
right?
I'm
that's-
afraid to bring this up for fear of being shot at.
Don't be afraid.
But the coach's fee of $30,000. You know,
It's actually gone down from last year.
Oh, good. What was it last year?
35,000.
How many coaches are there?
There's one head coach and then
Number of assistants.
yeah, a
and
number
then
of
they
assistant
pay the
coaches.
kids.
Yeah, but the neighborhood kids serve as assistant coaches.
Right.
Do they get
and,
paid?
And you have to be competitive.
Again,
I know,
you know,
because I
that,
don't want to say.
again, this is, all these expenditures are not expenditures, they are investments. And
Okay.
And the swim team is really one of our major assets.
I used to run this.
Yeah, I
in
know.
my day.
So
Okay.
don't,
And they're
so,
pretty much cost
so
effective.
I
I was
think
gonna say,
that,
how much of this is recovered anyway? How much is
Pretty
cost
much
recovered?
all of it, that's what the residual.
Oh, just sorry, so the 5,000, which given the comments tonight, we can split out into revenue and expenses. The residual would be 5,000, but the 30,000 is a cost, as is the NSL fee. So the cost of the swim team is the total of that amount. Like the net residual of the swim team is is the 5,000 plus 30,000 plus 550,000. So it costs $35,000 to run the swim team, even with the fees that we charge the parents.
Well, this is
So
net of
this-
the fees.
Net of the
So this is the town subsidy
correct.
over to.
And it is a municipal swim team.
And then we pay the dues too. What
Yeah,
are the
that's a-
dues now? That's
It's just like it.
right, yeah. It's a bargain. And honestly, the caliber of the coaches that we have there, it's my understanding they're basically underpaid.
Yeah.
They're not underpaid. That's,
It's my understanding
it's a bad
that
understanding.
they are under.
They are
Don't-
not underpaid.
Please respect please
I
respect. me.
can't.
Please respect me. Ann Bolton, are you listening?
The coach last year left. He was a very good one, and it's been hard to find a new coach.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to
yes.
have my house egg later, but
Yeah,
I just think we are.
you should, don't make these statements. right?
You
Yeah,
want
we're
to do
good.
postage,
Moving on to
postage.
printing and postage, that's the town journal, of course. We've had a desire to make it electronic for some years now.
Well, it is electronic.
I know, but make it fully electronic.
Yeah.
Right.
And residents still want it in paper.
Yeah, and this is the printing and postage and graphic designer are communications committee recommendations. Or it's
So the graphic designer I get, and I'm on the communications committee, and I think we do need to talk about printing and postage. How many residents are we talking about here? That we pay $13,886 to print?
Every household.
not every house.
No,
I
it's
I
not.
have to get. the
Oh,
exact
right,
number, but
I was
it's,
opt out, right?
Hovers around half.
Half of the households.
And they want it to, the survey went out and they do want it in.
This has always been controversial. This is an area, and this is like water.
It comes out first electronically.
Comes up every
I
year.
wonder, I don't know if this is too much of a pain in the neck, but I wonder if every, year we send out to the people that get it by mail saying, we just want to confirm that you still want this. Because I'm sure a lot of people get it and it goes right into the recycling bin. So if we can slowly probably whittle this down, and maybe it's not worth.
Well,
our while.
we've had all kinds of discussions. We could do an opt-in. We could write to everybody and say, we're not gonna mail it in unless you want it.
Right,
How
I
about,
like
how about
that.
we offer an incentive? You get a Somerset T-shirt if you stop getting.
I mean,
mail.
Water aerobics.
I mean, water aerobics, one section of water aerobics. is free.
Respect I can tell you right now that I know these surveys say all these things, but I believe that I still believe that only the female head of household reads the journal in each
That's
house.
so sexy.
And then we had we had our first meeting with a new residents, and didn't I ask that?
Yes.
I asked that, and the wife said she's the only one that reads it.
I like that if we can send out, I don't
The
know.
children don't read it.
Of course,
I tried to get, I've always tried to get young people to write columns and.
I think we
but
should
young
send out an
people will never read
opt-in
the
thing.
journal.
You gotta opt in, and then I think our costs will greatly go down.
Not necessarily, because there may be some people who are unaware that.
No, opt in only to the people that are getting it now. No, this isn't the blanket, hey, you want it? No, this is.
We
trying to
could do
whittle
it,
down.
the thing is, when the article is written about this budget, there should be some highlights, like we still have money in to do that, so people will have the opportunity to comment.
We can do that.
But I think that we should ask you to do a survey of around, I don't think around here or the surrounding municipalities, I don't think that they send it to everybody anymore. Like Friendship Heights doesn't, and I don't think Chevy Chase Village does.
No, but they're Chevy Chase villages like us, where residents can request it.
They can request it, because because when they changed, we didn't request it, so we don't get it anymore. Because we used to get I know that they've all changed, because we used to get everybody's newsletter and journal, and now we get zero, because they all have stopped printing it.
Moving on.
Am I allowed to say something here, Robin and Jeffrey? Can I jump in?
Of course.
Of course.
I'm a little long-winded, so you'll have to be patient. I just wanted to say that, what I've observed, obviously I was very keen on reducing this cost because it felt a bit anachronistic that we were sending a hard copy. But what I've observed being on the council all these years, that the folks that do get it really cherish it. And it is one of those things that really builds community in our town. And you have to remember, at the highest level, we are not in a period where we really have to penny pinch. We are, the budget looks strong. We have lots of options, as long as we are planning long term, which is what's being proposed. So, I've come around to the fact that we probably don't want to mess with this too much. We've reduced it, and I think the folks that have it care deeply about it, and it's a good thing from that perspective.
All right, thank you. Anyway, we should move on. I don't think we're going to complain about the crime prevention mailer at $1,000. Can't do anything about the insurance. We need it. The town hall, how did you come up with the modified forecast for maintenance?
This is based off FY 24 actuals and FY 25 half.
Okay, and that's a large enough base, you think you're comfortable? Okay.
I'm interested to see that supply is double maintenance. That's.
Well, they've just refurbished them.
We're in a throwaway society,
Let me say something about maintenance is that from years ago, when the renovations and our beautiful space were completed, the two council members that took the lead on it, Councilmember Peel and Zughazer, they were very adamant that the minute that it's finished, you have to maintain it, and you don't want it to decline the way it declined and had been neglected. So the way the staff is dedicated to keeping the maintenance in this place is really because of their deep concern.
I mean, yeah, I actually thought this was a low number, to be honest, because I've had a look at supplies at 20 and maintenance is only 10,000.
Okay, let's put more in.
Let's talk about the popcorn.
Let's put
wall.
more in. Let's put more in then. I mean, maybe these floors need to be waxed frequently and.
I don't know, I mean, I don't know what it costs to maintain an entire office space, but.
I think didn't we have, so our in-house staff is cleaning. Yeah, right. But Linda, we had.
We have a cleaning
We have a
service
cleaning
that comes in twice a month, and then
But-
also our staff, they
but-
clean every morning.
But at one time, we had more intense and then it cost too much, right? Didn't we have it like daily for a little while?
No, we never really had it daily. Well, we did, when we.
Yeah, we had it
started after
daily.
COVID,
Yeah, we had it daily during COVID, yeah.
If you need new computers, where does that show up?
Supply.
So it is part of the supply. And do you?
Put it in.
All right.
50-inch monitor.
Sounds fair.
Well, you've got Jeffrey reviewing the request before it comes to us, so he'll be very critical, I'm sure.
Right.
All right, garage, I presumably you did the same modified forecast.
Can I ask a question, just on utilities, both here in the town hall and further down in the pool? Does this take into account the savings from the solar panels? Or is this just carrying over from what we've been paying in the past? I mean, we should be start seeing.
Well, it doesn't, not for the pool or the garage. But for
No, I'm saying with the town hall.
For
and the
town
pool,
hall, yes.
There's this 7,633 and then the electric at the pool, 11,920. Are these lower numbers from the past or?
Town hall, yes, pool, no. Since we don't actually know what the savings will be at the pool because they haven't been installed there.
Oh, we didn't get an estimate from the solar installer as to what our savings would be?
We
Don't
got an
trust those
estimate, but
estimates.
I just
Don't trust
decided to
that.
test
Right.
Shouldn't trust the
the
estimate.
pool is such
Difficult
takes a lot of
location.
power, yes, so.
Difficult location.
All you need is a few weeks of rain and it's over. You don't get anything.
So
All right. All right, streets and sidewalks.
Streets and sidewalk, we discussed adding in the 20,000 for traffic calming. Was that going, does that go here or does that go?
I'll go like CapEx.
All right, the public safety recommendations that are in tonight's agenda, which we'll never get to, include double stop signs and ladder painting for crossings. Is any of that in here?
I mean, I think that Shannon, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, what you're referring to there is referring to those two intersections.
Yes.
And so the question, I think, for EJ is we sort of have two options, like just to clarify what the Public Safety Committee is suggesting. Option one is to implement the vegetation policy and have that taken care of.
Right.
If for some reason the town is unable or unwilling to implement the vegetation policy at those two intersections, then the Public Safety Committee recommends infrastructure expenditure.
Right.
To-
I mean,
to offer to basically mitigate the
I'd bring in an
vegetation.
extra point, which is not in there, which is that the intersection that is off Cumberland going up to Drummond is right by the school, and young kids are crossing there all the time. And we perhaps should highlight that one particularly with the latest in crosswalk design and the double stop sign.
That's included in the CapEx.
That is.
That's like on the CapEx.
Okay, good.
Yeah, anything to do with maintenance is in OpEx, and anything we have to buy is over multi-years is CapEx.
So in streets and sidewalks, the maintenance 3,500, like what does that cover? What are those?
That's like small, very small, like holes that we can just kind of plug, but I haven't even seen it.
And snow removal.
Hopefully by the time May comes around, Dewberry will give us a more accurate picture of what this maintenance is going to cost.
And of course, snow removal is in there, otherwise known as the slush fund. All right. So moving on to trees. 65,000 is.
Sorry, could I ask on sanitation? Can I ask a question then?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If I remember correctly, the council had a discussion about compost crew contract, and now that we've gone into an opt-out policy, right? So what's the adoption rate, and does this number take into account whatever the adoption rate is?
Yes, I mean, so there was very few opt-outs. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it was less than 25. And this is, that takes that into account.
But you can get it,
Yeah, I can get the number.
Yeah, I'm not sure people who didn't opt out are all putting out their compost bin. So there was supposed to be a catch,
Yeah, there's one composter on that.
and they'll do that. So we'll get a final number eventually. We don't know the number yet, is what it comes down
We
to.
don't know.
All right.
So, Mr. President, I note that it's 7:27.
Yeah,
Do
right.
we want to, adjourn? And so,
We have,
so just to remind the council that we did schedule an additional budget meeting for Wednesday, April the 2nd at 5:30.
yeah. I think
So
we
what
should
is
do
your
that.
pleasure? We could, there's some items on the work session that we didn't get to. And we could have these discussions about the service, the fees, and also the services.
Not to mention the rest of the workshop agenda, the work session agenda. That
Yeah,
we didn't get to.
is it okay if we just continue this agenda on Wednesday the 2nd?
Wednesday,
Which you
April
already have on
2nd.
your schedule?
What time?
I have, no, I don't. Take it back. I can do it, yes.
Didn't we already schedule that Wednesday?
Yeah.
We did.
Wednesday, April the 2nd. So is that everybody, is
Is that
that
at
still okay
5:30?
with everybody?
No, I have it on April the 1st. I'm sorry, Tuesday, April 1st.
I have Wednesday, April 2nd.
Yeah, I have Tuesday the first too.
I
think-
had the first
Veer
two.
wanted to change it to the 2nd, but I had written in my calendar originally the 1st.
Yeah, so had I. What did we publish in the journal? So is everybody available
The
on?
notes, my notes said the second.
I definitely have the
I have it
first.
on my calendar
At
for
the
the
time, I had
first
another
and the
meeting
second.
on the 2nd. It's been moved since then, but I mean, I would have not.
I'm available on the 2nd, not on the 1st.
You're available on the 2nd, that's probably why we changed to the 2nd, because Ron was.
So what about
I now
Peter?
can make the 2nd.
Oh, that's fine.
Earlier.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so it'll stand as April 2nd because that's what he had.
Right.
Okay,
Okay, wonderful. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Okay, excellent meeting.
Yes.
Excellent meeting.
Thank
It
you.
always
Thank you
makes
so
my,
much.
it
John?
always makes my heart warm when the
Good night.
budget, when the
John,
budget.
Peter,
Thank you,
thank you.
Mr. Town Attorney.
Good work.
It
very good
always
work.
makes my